Salutations all. Juicy a slice here, opening with an admission. Likely to no one's surprise, I never went to prom, but I made up for it the only way an odd duck like me knows how. I donned a mask, got an axe, and went on a murder spree. Vicariously, of course, by watching Paul Lynch's nifty little horror thriller, Prom Night. I had better things to do than go to prom. Thank you to anyone taking the time to check this out. I deeply appreciate it. So what do you get when a crime in the past leads to the wrong guy getting committed, culminating years later in a series of revenge slayings situated around an event? Since the Prom Night remake is more of a reboot with little in common with the original, I'll go with a more recent slasher, although that's relative since this one's got a couple of decades under its belt now too. Still, Jamie Blank's Valentine fits, so I'll go with that. But if you look back to the last year before the coming evil, I was born and Ronald Reagan assumed the presidency in 1981. Everybody wanted to know who shot JR, and clever people got a one-up on others with the introduction of the Rubik's Cube. You get the sleeper hit Prom Night. Since this comes on the heels of Jamie Lee Curtis's win at the Academy Awards, this is also in honor of her achievement. Arguments of who was the more deserving aside, there's no crying in wrestling or on the red carpet. Her bringing home the trophy is a solid win for the horror community. While branching out, she has stuck with the genre, even returned to the Halloween franchise for 2 fresh continuities, long after it became a choice rather than a necessity, and I have a lot of respect for that. Well, onward we go. If anything about this trips your fancy, please like, subscribe, and share. I'd appreciate that too.
Yes.
Directed by Paul Lynch, the screenplay was by William Gray from a story by Robert Guzza Jr., and the venture was produced by Peter R. Simpson. Prom Night stars the aforementioned Academy Award winning, it tickles me so much to say that. She certainly made quite an impression on me. By preparing me for a klutzy wife.
What?
Jamie Lee Curtis.
Not bad, but it isn't romance.
As Kim Hammond, Debbie Greenfield,
Nick!
As young Kim, Tammy Bourne, as Robin Hammond, Dean Borsacki as young Alex Hammond,
Darn!
the capable Joyce Kite, Brock Simpson, Karen Forbes, and Leslie Scott, as young Kelly Lynch, Nick McBride, Jude Cunningham, and Wendy Richards. Talented actor Michael Tuff as Alex. Lovely Mary Beth Rubens as Demir Kelly. Capable Casey Stevens
For a guy so fast on the disco floor, you are the slowest.
as Nick. Fetching Joy Thompson
I'll see you at the prom.
as Jude. Well-cast Anna Marie Martin as voracious Wendy Richards. The legendary Leslie Nielsen
I haven't had this much sex since I was a Boy Scout leader. I mean, at the time, I was dating a lot.
Oh, sorry, wrong clip. Let's try again. As Mr. Hammond, the school principal and the father of Kim, Alex, and Robin, an actor with a lengthy career, George Touliados,
Come on. Even a guess will help.
as old school lawman Lieutenant McBride, Nick's father, the delightful Sheldon Rabowski.
They call me Slick.
Sure they do, buddy. His name's Seymour Crane, but he clearly wants to see more butts, Jude's in particular. Another with a lengthy career, Jeff Wincott,
I'm glad to see you too.
as Ju Shinnick, Kelly's jerky boyfriend, and he went on to play a memorable cop,
This horse is a diabetic!
David Mucci, as bullheaded bully Lou Farmer. For a guy with a salt of the earth name, he sure has a head made of urethane. The film begins with your requisite deadly preamble. After noticing some other children are messing around in an abandoned building, Kim realizes she forgot her geography book and decides,
I've got
sport. Robin, you and Alex go on.
Robin has other ideas and Alex fails to change her mind,
Come on. They don't want you in their game.
only to wash his hands of the situation when he sees she won't relent.
Well, I'm not waiting.
Daring to intrude on their game of basically hide-and-seek on steroids, or maybe an early variation of Blammo, though no one has a spoon.
8:49, 50. Killer is coming. Killer is coming. Watch out, Kelly.
The children prove cruelly mischievous. They torment Robin, leading to her tragic death. The perpetrator swears silence.
We'll go home now and never ever tell anyone. No one but us will ever know.
Their decision slingshots a dreadful accident to murder. In the wake of their hasty departure, synchronistically and proving you never know if eyes are watching, a shadow falls over poor Robin. The police misread the crime and believe there's a sexual component to the transgression. This leads to the wrong guy
Leonard Murch.
taking the fall, and even nastier business.
Murch lived near the place where she died at. He's a known sex offender. It was, past tense. It might have helped if your men had stopped harassing him. But I believe he killed Robin Hammond.
This sets him up to be what could have been an early variation of Cropsey. Especially if he were carrying out vengeance on the kids who led to him getting fingered and nailed hard. That didn't sound right. Who led to him getting wrongfully accused?
Come from? Jeez, he's got a gun! Get the gun!
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say may be held against you. One nation indivisible till death do us part.
6 years later, the Hammond family honors Robin by visiting her grave on the anniversary of the terrible event. This coincides with the day of prom, and since life goes on, after the graveside visit, the siblings discuss what's important.
Have a date for the prom yet?
Kim is a bit of a romantic and encourages Alex to seek a date, but he's more interested in his role being in charge of the sound system. Red herring alert. We have a groundskeeper, and they're almost invariably creepy types.
I'm standing right here.
A phone call kicks off what culminates in a murder spree.
Hello?
Jude,
Yes?
can you come out to play tonight?
Jude will describe it as not a very obscene phone call, as if she would have welcomed a little spice in her life. Sure enough, a young fellow with a conversion van, and so much swagger he's clearly a maestro of love, happens along.
There's some girls, if they're good looking, I give them a ride.
I'm going straight to Hamilton High.
There's something so sensual about a woman eating an apple, wholesome. She will agree to let him accompany her to prom, so maybe he is slick, or maybe she's just hard up. Next, Kelly too gets a call.
Tonight, it's my turn.
Since these calls are only insinuating threat, not really rough calls like those in something like the original Black Christmas.
Let me lick your pretty piggy cunt.
They only act as annoyances, not deterrents, and in Nick's case, he doesn't even answer.
It's okay, Dad. It's my phone.
He assumes it's his ex-girlfriend and has no interest in talking to her because
Can't tell Wendy anything she doesn't want to hear.
he's moved on and intends to attend prom with Kim. Second red herring alert.
Just came over the wire. Last night, Murch escaped from the state hospital in Cleveland. He took a nurse and her car with him.
Wendy has high hopes when she gets her call.
Nick?
But is left disappointed.
Do you still like to play games?
Oh, get lost, Lou.
A mean girl before that terminology entered the pop culture lexicon.
She's such a bitch.
Wendy is the type to, certainly compliments of daddy, drive a hot car. And not take no for an answer.
See you later, lover.
I told her it was over.
Worked real well.
Even if Kim's willing to toy with Nick a little by acting miffed,
Oh, no, you don't. Yep, she's smiling. Got a big grin spread all over her face.
Luckily, she's cool and devoid of jealousy, and when confronted by her rival directly,
She's doing it again.
maintains her composure.
It's not who you go with, honey. It's who takes you home.
I'll try to remember.
She just does that to make trouble.
Enraged at being rejected, Wendy decides to recruit Lou for a payback prank and takes him out for some lunch.
I'll have a couple burgers, large fries, and what kind of beer you got?
Come on, man. This is a drive-in, not a bar.
All right, don't get nervous.
It's apparent there's quite a class difference, although Wendy, for all her expensive accoutrement, doesn't exactly define class. She does show some restraint, though it's clear she's still a mischievous stinker.
Listen, I don't want anyone hurt. Not badly.
I'll take care of it.
Kim shows how to survive one of these things when she chooses the best option under the circumstances. But it's Jude and Kelly who are the recipients of some true stalkerish behavior. Soon enough, and everyone begins departing for the dance. Wendy waits anxiously for her knight in black armor, Lou. I'm showing this bad behavior. To make a point later, although it shows another way her and Lou wallow on the same level, bad habits. With the dance underway, that's where this film becomes even weirder, as it decides to compete with Saturday Night Fever by putting on an elaborate 3-minute disco number, as if we're here for that and not the slasher goods. Befitting the prom royalty they are, Nick and Kim boogie it up. And I have to think Paul Lynch and the producers were like, this dance will sell this whole prom thing. Because American prom kings and queens always undertake intricate, well-choreographed dance sequences, right? On the periphery, Wendy and Lou are plotting or maybe scheming. Either or, they're up to no good. As hard to get open as a pistachio without a crack, Kelly proves reluctant to give up her virginity to Drew.
No!
What are you, fairy tale princess?
And he proves fairy tales don't come true by callously shucking her aside.
If you don't, I know plenty who will.
Before she is able to gather herself, someone shows up to collect her. Dashing the notion that Scream's rule set means anything, Kelly's chastity in no way saves her life. And if you think about it, were she in there going to Bone Town, the killer likely wouldn't have struck then. Anyhow, Jude lacks Kelly's reservations and, well, I'll just say Slick's van's a rockin', so it's best not to be a knockin'.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
They're getting it on. They finish up and seem to have shared a nice first time together.
The best.
Ever?
Well,
You're my first too.
Hooking up with the heavyset guy always made me partial to Jude, but my feelings have no bearing in this, and soon it's her turn to pay penance. After watching all that, all things considered, I'd rather go out on the heels of such an act rather than previous to, so this film seems less discouraging of sex than Kevin Williamson would have us believe. The film was even-handed with the treatment of its victims is all I'm saying. Wrong place, wrong time, Slick reacts surprisingly well and manages to repel the killer from the van. Doing his damnedest to get out of there, the killer has other ideas, and orchestrates him driving right off a cliff. Befitting her status as prom night's top, Wendy gets an extravagant death sequence. The merry chase begins in the lavatory.
What are you doing?
She evades, at times hiding, at others sneaking around in hopes of avoiding. The killer is fast-moving, slick and stealthy. Dressed all in black, he reminds me a little of an eel, striking prey from out of the darkness. I'm not saying smoking that cigarette hampered her chances of escape, but it couldn't have helped. You need optimal lung capacity to outrun a hellbent killer. For in the end, despite all her craftiness and evasiveness, she falls prey to the axe. Lieutenant McBride gets interesting news.
I had to tell you myself, we got him.
Where? When?
Well, actually, the state patrol got him up near Alderston.
It's over 50 miles from here.
With
Leonard Murch.
out of the way, I guess it was that suspicious groundskeeper.
All alone.
Lou intends to take Nick's place on stage as prom king, and he and his buddies get him out of the way. This leads to an interesting predicament, because the killer doesn't know about the trade-off, and beheads whoever's there waiting. Lou kinda had it coming. Due to his haphazard axe play, I get it, it takes a lot of oomph to take off a head cleanly, and that requires a wide swing. The killer absorbs a mighty jolt. Quite the spectacle. Lou's head goes rolling out in front of the crowd like a bowling ball. So his head was full of urethane after all.
It's wonderful what perception meets reality, isn't it?
A severed head staring out from the stage. Understandably leads to a chaotic scene as the crowd vamooses post haste. A rescue is almost achieved.
Hold on, kids! I'm coming to rescue all of you! Ow! Ugh, I'm bad at this.
But goes nowhere. Showing she's quite selfless, Kim rescues Nick. They're escaping when they come face to face with the killer. Kim protects Nick, who is the obvious target, only to get tossed aside. Resourceful young lady, she gets the axe and wings the killer a good one. Stunned, I mean probably concussed, and suddenly a little emotional, the killer makes eye contact with her. This is the moment that makes this, in my opinion, the best horror movie of Jamie Lee Curtis's to cover to honor her Oscar win, because her acting telegraphs the identity of the killer, as she realizes it's Alex, and it breaks her heart to discover her little brother that way. Injured and broken, Alex flees, Kim and Nick in hot pursuit. Alex emerges from the school before many onlookers and arriving police, overcome by memories of Robin's death. Before the police can shoot him, Alex collapses, and Kim rushes to him and removes his mask.
I killed her. I killed her. Robin! Robin!
Looking almost cherubic, he tells her the truth, then dies in her arms. With that, cue a sad song in the credits. So, what's Prom Night getting at in its there's a madman with an axe breathing down your neck sort of way? Though a surprise financial hit, the general critical assessment was that it was a watered-down mismatch of Halloween and Carrie. Carrying forward this sentiment, author William Latham asked rhetorically of Prom Night, what do you get if you remove everything of value from Halloween except Jamie Lee Curtis? I consider all this unfair because even though Prom Night does borrow heavily from what came before, it had its own set of ideas it was playing with. and did a good job in many ways by presenting surprises and turning some expectations on their ear. It's also an efficient yet artistic film, playing with cockeyed angles and reflections while moving along at a steady pace as it races towards the explosive conclusion. Like many slashers, this whole film is about poor decisions, from those made by the quadrangle of children-turned-murderers to Alex withholding the truth to his own detriment. But I feel like it utilizes bad decision-making in a way that isn't as insulting as some, because the motives are believable. For Jude, Kelly, Nick, and Wendy, they didn't trust the adults would view the ordeal as an accident and decided to cover up their involvement because facing that kind of trouble was too scary. It doesn't make them evil, they were children. Alex maybe didn't think the adults would believe him either. The wrong man was identified and established as the culprit so quickly. Were he to contradict the accepted narrative, it would be a problematic reversal, especially after a man was nearly killed in a car accident. So he had to push the cantankerous knowledge deep down. The need to hastily assign blame can bury the truth after all, as every innocent person convicted on eyewitness testimony and/or circumstantial evidence, and later acquitted, could attest. I tend to believe all involved put the circumstances of Robin's death away, and then as much out of their minds as possible. In the case of the four responsible, they may have forgotten about the incident altogether, and only revisited it in their nightmares. The notion they could forget might seem audacious, but children have an incredible capacity to compartmentalize, accept, and move on. One reason why they don't get trapped in the deadlights when witnessing what would drive most adults insane. Alex might have employed the elasticity of the youthful mind to keep on, but he certainly didn't forget. In his case, I believe he suppressed and likely did his best to hide from what he knew, but Robin's death tainted him irrevocably and inescapably. Revenge can require much brooding, subconscious and otherwise, adding rocket fuel to the tank over a long period as the perpetrator prepares for liftoff. Alex proves that even though children can survive horrible things, the trauma can still plant a seed of madness. Even if on the surface he was calm, Alex's shadow self was in the background plotting and becoming more monstrous by the day. How do I know? The ease with which he killed was a clear indicator he was way beyond the kind of hang-ups that keep normal people from killing, an unraveling of many ingrained morals and values. Their conveniently poor memories free the culprits from living with guilty consciences, but I doubt it was only Alex who was rotting from the inside out like a potato that looks perfectly healthy, yet contains a moldy core. Wendy in particular appears to have forgotten, and seems like the kind of nasty young woman who would blackmail Nick, and would be willing to cut off her nose to spite her face if it meant getting her way, or even just foiling Kim's happiness. Can't imagine Kim's interest in Nick would have been sustained beyond learning the truth, especially if it came from Wendy's foul mouth. As for Nick, since I don't believe he's a psychopath, that he's capable of dating Kim shows he definitely blocked it out. What in particular set Alex off? Simply put, as much as he was able to push the truth aside, he hit a saturation point, when he could no longer watch those who caused his twin's death live without retribution. What right did they have when Robin lost her young life to their antics? For that matter, what right did he have? Seeing Nick and Kim's burgeoning relationship likely played a hand too. Kim points out,
I wish she would have been a junior this year. Would have been her first prom.
And it makes me suspect that the notion they were coming up on when real milestones become all that much more important, prom, learning to drive, sweet 16, turning 18, graduation, etc., and it overwhelmed him to think Robin was denied all these celebratory life events. The stress of it had to be immense. I'm guessing if you walked a mile in his shoes, you would find a lot of blister-wearing pebbles that don't pour out no matter how hard you try. I also imagine him being a little like oobleck, a mix of cornstarch and water that depending on conditions can swing between being firm enough to walk on or a goopy liquid tantamount to slime. Something reflected even in his fast style of killing. If he kept moving, remained mentally nimble and focused, he was firm and held together. But if he stopped to consider, if he slowed to look back, He emotionally liquefied before the face of the truth about his own contribution to what happened. On some level, all of it was probably always with him. He possessed enough social awareness to fit in, but that didn't mean the past wasn't a constant distraction. As the one who couldn't let go, distraught Alex became something of a sin-eater for the group, hefting and eternalizing all the accountability, recrimination, and guilt. Is it any wonder he became a dark angel of reckoning, of vengeance, of justice? Prom Night bears an interesting distinction. Whereas Jamie Lee Curtis was absolutely imperiled in Halloween and Terror Train, really had to fight for her personal survival, in this film, her character was never the target of the killer, so the final girl, the presumed focal point, was never truly in danger. I would say this is an example of pulling the wool over the audience's eyes, and it creates an out-of-the-ordinary dynamic since she only runs afoul of the killer by trying to protect Nick. Because of their vastly different experiences in relation to Robin's death, the contrast between siblings is a gulf. Kim was able to mourn and subsequently move on, unhindered by guilt. She advised her siblings to go home and had the reasonable presumption they would do as they were told, consoled by the belief that the culprit was locked away, while only Alex and the real culprits were burdened by knowledge of the truth. I feel this lent to her free-spirited and carefree nature. There was no weight from the past crushing her. Robin's death was a tragedy, but would her sister want her to stop living? The answer is no. On the other hand, Alex had to suffer what I assume was an insidious and gnawing guilt for one very bad decision. In his last moment with his twin, he chose to leave.
Well, I'm not waiting. Alex!
Even if he was able to push it mostly out of mind, as a survival mechanism, how many times did it play over in his head how different things could have gone had he stayed? How many times did he blame himself? Even after he reconciled it enough to go on living, the gnawing was there, wearing him down, until he could no longer take it, an erosion of heart and spirit. As slashers go, I feel his motives, though misguided and in the end wrong-headed, are some of the most understandable. At once he was honoring his twin by revenging her, and also freeing himself of the all-consuming guilt and rage. Breaking points are that, when all the factors converge and the need to act becomes too great, it's the stuff out of which revolutions, insurgencies, and murder sprees are made. I suppose all those are the same thing. Alex had no choice but to strike, even if in the end it cost him his life. In final analysis, the corrosive effects of secrets and guilt built up in a tragedy-stricken young man until he was unable to contain the boil-over of his emotions. Tattling might have ultimately been the best choice. Had he immediately told the truth, so much could have gone differently. Almost certainly Kelly, Jude, Nick, and Wendy would have faced punishment, which would have complicated their lives for a time, but it would have been the right thing. What they did might have been inadvertent and fallen short of murder, being more in the realm of manslaughter, but it was wrong, and for that they deserved to be taught a lesson. Unfortunately for them, Alex felt the same way, and took it a little too far, because there's nothing to be learned when you're dead. This film might also have something to say about the wanton nature of bullying, how it leads to no good. Robin was pointlessly bullied right out of a window, her young life cut tragically short. A man innocent of the crime for which he was being accused was irrationally bullied into a terrific car wreck that left him deformed and led him to killing a nurse. Lou was an equal opportunity bully, viewing anyone he could push around as inferior, and therefore easy pickings, including the young man who would ultimately lop off his head. Maybe ironically, Kim refusing to be bullied by Wendy was an action that made Wendy want to up the ante, which got Lou beheaded while sparing Nick that fate. All a strong indicator that bullying is bad for the recipients and perpetrators alike. All of it negativity denied a positive outlet. And if possible, it's best to stand your ground and not let the bully win. Is Prom Night worth a watch? I'm a sucker for slashers, especially ones from the first wave in the early 80s, so I would give it an enthusiastic recommendation. but I also acknowledge your personal desire might hinge on your tolerance for the subgenre. Well, I've about reached the end of the rope, so I won't leave you dangling. Thank you for hearing out my ramblings. Please share any refutations, opinions, accusations, japes, or other ideas in the comments below. And please join me next time when I cover a request. Hopefully in time for the holiday I don't know exactly what it does, but to say honor seems a misnomer. Charles Kaufman's controversial cult classic from 1980, Mother's Day. And just remember, if you're not back by midnight, you won't be coming home. Bye now!